and welcome back to the Public Safety Special Broadcast. We are here today, just a solo episode for me today. So even though we had a chapter last week, and it was still very interesting, there's a lot going on lately in the story involving Yoru, and if you forgot somehow, I am, of course, your host, Secret Doves, age 34, going on 35, just in a few months here. 35. Yikes. Still reading manga, you know? It's still good. What is there to say? And my contract is with the War Devil. And so, as per having this contract, you know, I think about Yoru a little bit, and it's been very interesting, but I don't think people are quite seeing the forest for the trees, or even the trees for other trees. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, but you know, for sort of obvious reasons, the discussion around Yoru has taken a turn. I don't want to say that is frustrating, but I feel like it's a little It's like everybody's got some block. There's like one. Everybody's really close to getting it. It's like everybody's kind of getting it, but it's pretty involved. The way he structures, the way Fujimoto structures these stories is quite intricate in a lot of ways, and you know, there's lots of things happening at the same time, but they're not disconnected, and I feel like people aren't quite putting it together with Yoru, aren't quite seeing why the story would develop in the way that it has, and what's you know, why is this character fucking everything up, you know, why is she, you know, is it just supposed to be annoying? Is it just supposed to troll you, bug you? Oh no. Okay, so in this episode we're gonna go through Yoru, and this is gonna be a lot of big ideas from front to back of the story. You know, we recently just had that Death Devil reveal, and everybody saw how that is, you know, bringing together so many things from the entire story. It completely changes all of the context of the events of the story thus far, changing the meaning there, shifting our understanding around, right? That's where we are in the story right now. That is the phase we are in. Everything is coming together. And that is also true in terms of Yoru and her development and her meaning in the story, and the reasons that she is the way that she is. So I want to go through that. It's going to be a little involved. I'm going to try and keep it focused. So let's start with the basics. Yoru, the War Devil. Why is the War Devil in this story? What is this character's basic function? Well, it's hard to call it basic because this guy's a very fancy writer. You know, he's very engaged with fiction, as everybody knows. He reads a lot, he watches a lot, he thinks a lot about these things. And his writing shows it because he does a lot of things. So, I said this about part 1 as well, so let's go back there, right? Recently, people have picked up on the Yoru Makima kind of, not exactly parallel, but like their shared role in the story here. And so looking at Makima in part 1, again, something I think people kind of miss is, yes, it is this personal relationship with Denji, right? This kind of mother-son mixed with romance and this like very Oedipal, psychosexual, weird, dom sub thing going on, all mixed up there, really keeping it just as messed up as you can go. This guy, you know what I mean? This guy bringing it all in there, classic stuff, very Evangelion kind of mixing Freudian psychology with shonen tropes to deconstruct the psychology of the hero. Oh my goodness, this guy's seen Evangelion. Wow. So that's one aspect of it, but Fujimoto goes even further by having Makima throughout the story play the role of the sort of avatar of neoliberal surveillance security state, at the post 9/11 neoliberal security surveillance state. And I know that some of you are already like, you're reading too much into it, you're reaching, but like, I'm not, okay? If you aren't seeing that, you are literally ignoring very significant parts of the story. Let's go through it. In part 1, the premise of the whole gun devil, Denji kill the gun devil. What's the gun devil's backstory? 9/11. Right, it's in the 90s to kind of switch it up, and it's an alternate timeline, but basically, the gun devil is this devil world's version of 9/11. Big, terrorist attack in the United States. A terrorist attack in the United States that causes everybody to get really scared. And in our world, they got scared of terrorism, right? Terrorism, the war on terror was the thing. In this world, it's the gun devil. Guns become the scary thing. The war on the gun devil. Everybody is competing to fight against the war devil. But really, actually, all these world governments, again, these are explicit plot lines laid out through the story. All these different world governments, they say they're trying to beat the war devil to the gun devil. Fuck. They say they're trying to beat the gun devil to their citizens as a way of, gaining support, placating the population, keeping everybody calm so they don't get scared. This guy. But in reality, they're trying to collect all the pieces of the gun devil so that they control the gun devil, right? So the war on gun devil, the war on terror in the real world, is a pretext for actually advancing the surveillance and control that these neoliberal governments exert upon their population. That's what happens in the fucking story of Chainsaw Man Part 1. That is plot events. Plot events, that is what is going on in the story explicitly. We see it described explicitly, and if you know real world politics from like a leftist perspective, then that's the fucking 2001 to 2010. That's what's going on. That is it. The advancement of the neoliberal security state using the war on terror as a pretext. And Fujimoto makes sure that you don't ignore this connection, because he puts literal 9/11 in his story. The gun devil attack in the story is September 12th, right? 9/12. You know, the guy's not subtle, all right? If you think I'm reaching, I'm sorry, you're just not reading it. You got a bad read. It sucks. You know what I mean? You gotta take what's there, all right? It is what it is. It's really good. You know, Makima did 9/12, right? We see, literally, she is, you know, she's doing the conspiracy that everybody said America did to create this environment of fear and triumph so that she could garner support and control the population with her powers and take over the entire world. Oh my God. You see, this is what he does. So we have this central devil woman, Makima. She is the heart of the meaning of the story. And what is the meaning of the story? It is a metaphor connecting abusive relationships between parents and children and the weird psychosexual connections there, using that as a metaphor for the political conditions of the subject, of the citizen under neoliberal security state, surveillance state system, that kind of capitalist, exploitative, what do you call it? You know, using consumption and material desires to placate their citizens and blind them, or, you know, frustrate their curiosity about the systems of domination that control them. And that's where the whole connection between sexuality and political dominance comes into play, right? Leveraging people's meager desires to keep them complacent and complicit in these horrible structures of violence that are justified using the language of justice and heroism and protection and safety and, you know, the whole fucking story, all right? That's what's going on. That's what we're talking about here. Right? And you think about that. Think about that for a second, because there's a lot, right? But like I said, it's a very intricate kind of story. He does a lot of things at the same time, and all of that. And then, you know, that connects everything with the ignorance is bliss, the, you know, following your dreams. What is the role of hope and dreaming in these systems of control and domination? It's kind of honestly, it is extremely bleak, and I say this a lot, and there are some people who get it, there's some people who don't really like it, but the guy's really going after the meat of all of the worst shit about modern life, and he's got a little bit of time for hope and happiness here and there, but yeah, more or less we're staring into the decrepit soul of life in the 21st century and saying, this is no good. this really fucks you up pretty bad, doesn't it? And yes, it does. In all the way that works. Okay, and that's what he did in part one. But I would say he kept it pretty reined in a bit. It was focused. It was tight. He had the main point to make about, you know, this paternalistic relationship and how it's abusive, and why it creates these cycles of abuse, and searching for some kind of way to maybe break out of it, but probably not anyway. But maybe we can find some hope in there through this story. And he landed on something, you know, it's a nice ending. It doesn't really solve the problems, you know, the structural issues at play, but, you know, maybe you individually can find some hope or something like that. You know, writers don't have to, you know, answer all the questions that they pose with their art. Especially not, like, huge political ones, like, how do you deal with the, you know, the ever-present domination of the neoliberal security surveillance state? How do you deal with that? You know, tough question. No, no great answers there. Certainly don't expect some mangaka to know the answer to a question that many political philosophers of the 21st century have struggled with, and honestly really failed to come up with anything particularly good. So, you know, something about community connection, I don't know, giving lots of hugs, the human connection, I don't know. It's not too great of an answer, which comes back around in part two. So, okay, but this is the main thing, right? This is it. Makima, control, the relationship between Makima and Denji, the relationship between the subject and the systems of control in society. Dun, 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 dun. Right? It's pretty laid out, and then it gets more politically intricate with sort of the specificity of what he's talking about, with referencing 9/11, with going in detail about how the government's working and on all this kind of stuff. So, you know, big political analysis, and then you drill it down into this character dynamic. Okay, that's the main thing I'm driving at here. This is how he does it, at least in Chainsaw Man. At least in Chainsaw Man, this is what he's cooked up, and, you know, he could have switched it up in part two, but he did not. He came in hot in the very first chapter with the War Devil, and so if you know, if you got it in part one, then you know what it is, right? Like, he comes in, the War Devil, it's another one of these horror sisters. Well, it's time for war, you know what I mean? Let's all think about war. Which, little tangent here, it's still related though. I do think, um, in just a massive stroke of irony, that one of the things that causes people to sort of disengage with part two, as compared to part one, is that the thematic structure here is built around war, right? The role that war has in, once again, the 21st century neoliberal security state, right? Obviously, war plays a big role in society, in modern society, especially if you're talking about American society, but also Japanese society. Very, very big topic of discussion, very, very present in the politics all the time. The threat of war, the topic of war is always under discussion, always there, even as they have this Article 9 piece. Japanese politics, very complicated, especially revolving around the topic of war. It is layered, it is involved, and it is something that people really really don't like to think about. Sort of, control domination is like, it's a little sexy, as a topic. It's fun to be like, hey, look at how they're trying to control me, man. You know what I mean? It's fucking all my life up the way they're coming in and keeping me down and tricking me. You know what I mean? Yeah, we need to get our minds right and understand the domination. But, coming in and being like, yes, the lives that we live are built on top of a foundation of mass murder, hatred, a constant state of war maintained at a distance that we ignore and are all complicit in the circumstances of our normalcy and the understanding of our desires and hopes and dreams is predicated on these systems that implement and execute the worst possible horrors in human existence. Yes, but that's not nearly as cool, you know what I mean? Because then it sort of comes back to you. With the control one, it feels more like I can personally resist. With the war stuff, it feels real, like, yeah, and they murder people, right? So, I don't necessarily want to, it, as an individual, it's a little bit rougher to engage with this idea of how these massive systems, specifically of just destruction and violence, exist within the culture and the impact that they have on you and your mindset and your life. Ooh, that one's rough. You know what I mean? And so people don't think about it too much, which is something that comes up in the story. You know, this is not something people talk about or think about very much at all. And when it does come through, when people do start thinking about it and interacting with it, oh man, it fucks them up really bad. Like, that is when war is on the wind, when people are talking about the war's on, ooh, you know shit's gonna get bad. Like, these are bad times. You would rather hope that that's not what's going on, but it is. To me, that's one of the things that makes these kind of stories, this kind of discussion within works very valuable, very significant. But it can alienate people without putting too fine a point on it. You know, it's not what you put in your, it's not the theme you would go after if you were trying to, you know, really bring people on board. And already in part one, it's pretty, you know, the stuff he's talking about politically, people ignore that a lot already. Again, because it's something that, you know, you're not really gonna think about or dig into too much unless you're like a politics weirdo, if you're deep into the political analysis kind of stuff. But with war especially, it's just gross. War is so fucked up, right? And there you go. Why is Yoru all fucked up? Why is she act up in all these, you know, absolutely like disturbing and frustrating and you know, you know, sort of obviously evil, sort of like, I heard that, you know, one of the analyst peers on Blue Sky was talking about she's I think it was Fang, he was talking about she is like so normally evil, you know, she's just like the kind of bad person you would meet on the street, right? Makima is like this looming, imposing presence, larger than life, but Yoru is down in the dirt, right? She's the real fucking just like, you know, selfish, thoughtless, impulsive, destructive, kind of abusive person you would just sort of like run into, although she is exaggerated. Like, abusers are not open like this, you know, they like to keep it low key, hide it down low. Yoru is not that. Yoru is not, you know, keeping secrets per se, although it seems she has some kind of scheme for the apocalypse, according to Asa. We will see where that goes. I'm very interested to see what that amounts to, because that, you know, that can have a lot of weight on the meaning that, you know, we're processing in this discussion. But right, when we're introduced to Yoru at the very beginning, we see that Makima is kind of hidden in plain sight. Yoru is repressed. So Makima, everybody knows about it. Everybody basically gets it, that, you know, she's controlling everything and she's watching you and there's no escape. But like, everyone's just sort of like, yeah, but it's a good thing. You know what I mean? There it is. Yes, and it's for the best, right? Again, the neoliberal security state, right? The paternalistic Like, we're just going to control your life and watch everything you do, but it's good for you, you know? Oh, was it good for us? I don't think so. Right, but like I said, the way that war is embedded in society is something that people do not think about. It is forgotten. It is specifically narrativized away. It is not even, you're not even supposed to think of war as a thing that really happens, even though it's happening all the time. It's just normal, you know? It's nothing, right? Like, don't even worry about it. It's just how things are. Oh, God. Don't even think about it. Think about anything else. Don't worry about the bad stuff. Just think about the fun things, you know? War is... it's too much, you know? It's too big. It's too evil. Right? We can't worry. If we're worried about that all the time, we can't do anything, right? And the fucked up thing is, that's kind of true. That's kind of true. If, you know, you wake up every day and if you're thinking about what's happening in the Gaza Strip, you know, every day when you wake up, how are you gonna live? You know, like, what are you gonna do? Just, you know, you know, what to actually do. There's a lot of great ideas, and just lay it out, you know, go donate, go be vocal, go convince other people, you know, connect with activists in your community, you know, do what you can to the extent that you feel capable, and you know, anything is important, right? Doing something at all is better than doing nothing. But even still, you know, you can't be thinking about it all the time, right? You can't. There comes these moments in your life when you gotta think about the stuff that keeps you going. Because if you're all caught up in the horrors of the world, then you know, you're stuck. You'll just wallow in misery, and you know, never get back up, or end it all, you know? And maybe that's, you know, when it comes to something as fucked up as war, maybe those choices aren't even that wrong, right? It gets very messy because of how brutal war is. Right? And so we have our war devil. She is ignored, forgotten, specifically erased by society, and willfully so by its participants, because it just feels a lot better to pretend it's not a problem psychologically, because it's so massive and so horrible and so gross that you really would just rather not worry about it, right? But when you ignore it, when you underestimate it, when you try to control it and manipulate it, it will turn on you. It will blow back. It will reappear. It will show up, because it didn't go away. It was always there, but it was hidden forgotten. Oh, but then it comes back. And when it comes back, what happens? Well, then it all falls apart. Then you can't pretend anymore, even if you maintain that commitment to normalcy. Even if you try to pretend that it's the same old, half the fucking city blew up, but hey, I gotta go to work. Even if you try, ooh, it will come. It will come for you. It will come for your normal life. You cannot deny it. It will come in and destroy you, because that's what it does. It will abuse you and manipulate you and torment you and revel in your suffering, because that's what war is. It is passionate, it is destructive, it is evil, it is selfish, it is childish, and it is straightforward, right? And that is what the Yoru and Denji dynamic is, right? So Makima and Denji's dynamic, it is supposed to be like this, paternalistic security state controlling and dominating your life, and it looks down on you, and it loathes you, and it hates you. It doesn't give a shit about you, but it will pretend that this is all in your best interest, that you deserve this, right? Oh, he's so good. But war, when the military comes around, they don't fucking give a shit about you. Fuck you, you know what I mean? I don't give a fuck, right? We're here to kill people. We're here to blow shit up. This is hatred. This is vengeance. This is destruction. And you know why? Because we want to, and we can. That's what war is. There's no reason to do it. There's no logic behind it. There's no plan that makes any sense as to why you would go and just blow a bunch of shit up and, commit horrific acts of sexual abuse and just, wanton violence, and fucking people are out there doing that shit for fun. That's how war goes down. That is the realities of war. And they come back around, You can ignore them and pretend it's all fine, but then the fascists will show up again, You can just try to ignore the way that war is embedded in every single aspect of society, and how, the media tries to motivate you to ignore the reality of death and destruction that are maintained at the expense of the population. You can try to ignore them and just engage with parasocial relationships. Look for heroes that will save you, and then oh yes, that guy, he will save us from the destruction. Oh, except for now I'm in a cult. Oh, except for now I'm a fucking fascist. Oh, except for now I've gone fucking insane and I believe in the crazy, ridiculous conspiracies that don't make any fucking sense. Oh my god. God damn. It's so good. But you gotta take that step. You gotta get with the thing of this is a political discussion. And when we're talking about, with Makima, it was like this mother-son Oedipal kind of thing. With Yoru Denji, it is a romance, It is a boyfriend-girlfriend hanging out. And what does that mean? How does that connection translate into the relationship between war and the individual? And I'm not 100% sure exactly where he's going with that, right? A lot of those developments are happening right now in the story. Very, very cool. All right. Please, just like, yes, Yoru is horrible. It is war, right? War is returning to the world, and it is here to destroy everything and ruin society and make everything worse and be really bad and be really horrible, because that is the price that society pays. That is the outcome of part one, the neoliberal security state. What happens when this state is engaging with war, is doing all this violence, is sacrificing its citizens, is, doing war while pretending that war is not happening? Right? What happens then? The reality breaks through, right? The reality of war comes back around and breaks shit down, and eventually you can't deny it, but you still try to. You just want to go about your day, but the war is still on, and it's tearing your fucking whole society apart. Come on, this is so good, right? Like, you're trying to pretend it's fine, but actually you're fucking losing your mind, and because war has already come and ruined everything, but it's still here, and you're trying to just still have a good time, even while everything's all fucked up. But just to take a guess at it, I think the Makima parallel is pretty direct, not too hard to get at, seeing how that kind of parent-child abusive relationship is, very similar to this paternalistic neoliberal governance tracks, right? I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but yeah, I think you get the vibe. If you're an American, the Democratic Party always talking to you like they're your fucking mom. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to clean your room and stand up straight, and if we all work hard together, then it'll be fine. What? Why don't you have a job, even though why aren't you satisfied with your economic circumstances, even though things are by the books very good? And it's like, shut the fuck up, mom. Right? You're the one who's fucking shit up for me. Blah 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 blah. Right? The abusive dynamic between the parent and the child, and the neoliberal security state dynamic with the individual. Very great. So with war, why does it gotta be like an abusive relationship, like a fucked up, like your evil girlfriend who fucking abuses you, as it is explicitly this time in the story? Well, once again, this guy is not too subtle about it. Yoru is a seductress. She comes in at the beginning of the story, and her, statement on the record is she's gonna seduce men and turn them into weapons. War will seduce young men and turn them into weapons. Wow. Yeah. I mean? That's pretty straightforward. I hope I don't need to explain to you the dynamic of that in society. It's how it fucking works in like a very, the war in movies seems cool. You want to be fighting. You want to be, saving the world, right? You want to fight as a hero for justice. It's a seductive idea, and it's you're feeling, oh yes, this makes me feel powerful, this makes me feel desired, this makes me feel loved. I am there saying I will be the hero that saves people. That's what I want. People to like me, I want people to love me. And the promises of the military are that you will be protecting your country, and people will be like, yay, go you, and you'll be cool, and we'll give you money, we'll give you stuff. The seduction of war, plus it lets you fucking act out, a lot of frustration in a normal life. And in war, you get to go crazy. You gotta fucking chop people up. Right? You get to cut loose. You get to be all fucking evil, like a devil. Do evil shit. Right? It's seductive. It preys upon your passions, your desires, your urges. And then it turns you into a weapon and uses you and abuses you and manipulates you and breaks you down and destroys you and, burns your whole life to the ground. So sick. So fucking sick. Right? And for my money, I mean, Yoru's delivering on all cylinders, just like everything. The selfishness, the destructiveness, the impulsiveness, the sadistic, manipulative seduction, war and violence. It's so fucking... Comic is great. Comic is really good and very interesting. And that's just Yoru, right? Like, there's so much more happening in the story, too. That's just the Yoru Denji romance dynamic. I haven't talked about Asa's role in this here. But I just wanted to lay out what's the deal with Yoru Denji, why is it working the way it does, why does the story focus so much on this? Well, because, that's how these work, right? That's the architecture here. That's the outline here. And I know there's lots of people that are interested in other things too. They want to see what's going on with the other characters and all this kind of stuff. Which I can see that. I can get that sensibility, but I do think, the work to do about war is a little bit, war is such a mess of a topic. Like, there's so many ways that it touches on life in the 21st century. And so it is not really a surprise to me that it's taking more attention than just sort of like the state, because it's actually it's a bigger thing. It's very rich topic, and we're getting the whole, like, he's really doing it, going all the way through it, including but not limited to like old and how gentocracy figures into it, right? Old people sending young people to die, war. How religious institutions fit into it, their propaganda, indoctrination, militarization of their adherents, their participation and aggravation of conflict in order to accelerate the development of war and the activities of war within society, and how Bram is literally, he fucking loves war. He's like, I want to see Chainsaw Man fighting. Humans are tools for killing. I mean, this guy is another aspect of war, and here he is driving this religious institution. That's everything. It's just all of it, the whole fucking thing. He is not letting up on this concept. And Yoru is the heart of it. She is the embodiment of it. She is the character who, does it all. And captures that seductive, destructive nature of war as it is embedded in 21st century culture. And then it includes her relationship with Asa. Asa is also seduced in a different way. And, in that way, and the impact it has on her, we're seeing this sort of two-sided, different gender dynamic of how does it affect young men? How does it affect young women? How do they get involved? How do they get engaged with it differently? And what are the consequences of that engagement? Differences in the way that men and women process that, even as they are trying to connect with each other, how war comes in and gets in the fucking way and fucks it all up, and how, the twisted desire that the inherent violence and destruction of a culture built on war, how that impacts the way we try to connect with each other on a personal level. Both, there's a romantic aspect to it, but really Denji and Asa, they haven't even become friends yet. And there's a way in which this seduction and manipulation, impedes that real connection at the core, even though it is there and it could it could maybe be saved, but war gets in the way and it fucking tears everything apart. What a story. What a writer. He's absolutely cooking. It's absolutely amazing. I hope if you listen to this, that maybe this helps you understand a little bit of what's going on, maybe something to chew on with Yoru's role in the story, because it's not going away. It's only gonna get worse, because that's how it goes with war. It doesn't get better, it gets worse until it all fucking falls apart. If you know history, that's kind of how it goes. It's, things tend to escalate rather than de-escalate once it starts going, I forget the famous quote, but the only war you can control is one that's not happening, or something like that, paraphrasing, right? Once it starts, you've got the tiger by the tail, and you think you're riding high, but you're not. So those are my thoughts on Yoru, why she's acting the way she is. Lots to think about, and really still much of the meaning here, the exact specificity of what he's trying to say, or what the questions he's wrestling with, what he sees as the impact of war on the world, and is there any sort of hope for salvation or reconciliation within such a society? Maybe not, right? The apocalypse is on deck in the story, and you know, such a world built on destruction and indulging in their blissful ignorance of the suffering they visit on others and the suffering they experience themselves. Such people, perhaps, they can only be destroyed, you know. You know, can the cycle be broken? Maybe not. Maybe apocalypse is the only way through. I don't know. It's interesting. Interesting ideas. There's a lot coming through in the latest chapters about justice, hope, death, all this kind of stuff. And those ideas, I don't have a clear sense of how they're connected with all of this yet, how they are going to relate to war. Obviously, there's some sort of, you know, real world connections there that you can try and drive from, but in terms of what Fujimoto is going for as of yet, not sure. Very interested to see. Of course, I remain fascinated by Yoru even through all of her fucking, you know, absolute depravity and destruction. War. You know, props to Fujimoto for not making war cool. Like, really taking Yoru and shoving her in your face and making her very frustrating, aggravating, harmful, and yet still seductive in a way, you know. That's what an absolute fucking trip of an experience it is, reading this character. Just wow. I'm loving it. I know some people don't want to think about it. Whatever. Chase on Bad is very good. Thank you for watching another episode. This is the Public Safety Special Broadcast. Like, subscribe, comment. Tell me how you don't even care. I say Yoru still. Great. Anyway, give a comment or read your comment and then delete your comment. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll do a chapter review next week. It's break week this week. Normally I sort of do in the other order, but we'll come back for a chapter review. The last chapter the week after this, and it'll be fun. I'm excited for that. The chapter is very cool. Things are very fun here. Really exciting sign in the story. Lots of crazy Yoru developments. You know, when you're thinking about Yoru, when Yoru's doing stuff and you're like, what the fuck is this? About war. This is about war. We're talking about war here, right? Get it in your head. Yes. It's going to be fucked up, right? Because literally the most fucked up aspect of modern society is taking it on straight to the dome. Love to see it. And we'll be talking about it next time. Because for fun. Because that's what I do for fun. Anyway. Bye-bye.